Hello YouTube, I'm back again. Today I'm giving you guys what you asked for. Many people have asked for it, so you're getting it. You're getting a what's in a name. You're getting it on GL Pieces, Sixpence. Now, anybody that has this tin knows that there's a little bit of a story on the back, but we're going to ignore that for now. We're going to look at the Sixpence, what it's named after. So, I originally thought when I decided to do what's in the name on this, which by the way, I decided to do it because of you. Because people asked me, hey, please do another what's in the name. We love it. I thought, okay, fine. I have a few different tobaccos I can do it on. Let's try it on Sixpence. I had smoked a bowl of it once before. I liked it well enough. I could smoke more of it. Name's relatively interesting, though not as interesting as I would hope. Or so I thought. That I planned to look up, see when the Sixpence was popular. Go off of that to figure out the time, the era that the tobacco was meant to convey, figure out the personality of that era, and then tell you whether or not the tobacco fits that personality, plus the little blurb on the back, and see if it all just works together. Wasn't that simple, though. Indeed, it's actually quite difficult. Why is it difficult? Because the Sixpence ran from 1551 to 1970. And the blurb on the back, which I'm still not going to read, is so nondescript that it could be at any period within that period of time. So how would I go about figuring out when this tobacco is meant to convey and whether or not it does a good job of it? I couldn't even begin researching eras. Now, of course, my first initial thought was, hey, now, just look up, see when tobacco was manufactured, when it got to England, and when the Great Big Boom was. Well, I have that written down too. Tobacco in Virginia started to be produced in 1612. The first shipment to England was in 1613. At which point, tobacco really boomed in England. And it continued to boom for about 200 years. It changed. Cigars became popular. Cigarettes became a thing. All that stuff happened. But tobacco, as a whole, never really lost popularity. Now, it's worth noting that some people didn't like tobacco, and there was some campaigns against tobacco during this period of time, but tobacco, largely as a whole, remained popular right up until recently. Hell, it still is relatively popular in England and the rest of the UK. So, how do I nail that down? I didn't know. What I did know from looking at tobacco reviews is that this tobacco is part of a line of tobaccos. A line called Old London. Now again, London is extraordinarily old. I'll admit, I didn't look up to see when London first came about, but I know it's really, really old. Really, 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 really old. It's one of the oldest modern cities out there. Not the oldest, but one of them. So, at this moment in time, and I'm just going to stop trying to smoke. I'm going to vape instead. At this moment in time, I have absolutely no idea where to go, but I'm very intrigued. This tobacco, thank you all who suggested I do a what's in the name, by the way. This tobacco gave me such a vigorous chase to figure out where I should place it to do this what's in a name that I was all over the internet. It made my laundry this morning last like 5 minutes. You know, it took 3 hours to do it all. So, thank you. Now, where was I? So I'm looking on GLP's website because Tobacco Reviews said it was a line from a line called Old London. Okay, Old London, the Old London line has a bunch of different names in it. And I'm starting to get an inkling in the back of my head of what time period this is supposed to be. But I'm not 100% sure at this point. But there is one tobacco. One out of the huge list of tobaccos, well, not huge, relatively large list of tobaccos on their website for this line that was a big red flag. Gaslight. Gaslights were first used in London in the early 1800s, and they reached peak popularity and would have been a cultural icon about the 1850s to early 1900s. Couple that with the fact that Sixpence was kicking around, and a couple of the other names for the other tobaccos make sense for the mid 1800s to early 1900s. We now have something going on. What do we have going on? We have a time zone. We know when this tobacco was meant to take place, and it fits with the back. But this isn't where it ends. Oh no. The 1850s to early 1900s is one of the most influential times in English history. And I don't just mean that in what they were doing at the time, though of course there was interesting stuff happening. I mean in pop culture. I mean in particular Sherlock Holmes. Now, I did not want to touch on anything related to fiction in this What's in a Name. I wanted to keep it solely on history. But one cannot ignore anything related to Sherlock Holmes when it's thrown in your face, as this is, especially when somebody like myself is a huge Sherlock Holmes fan. So, I think it's safe to say, concerning Sherlock Holmes was active in the early 1900s, that this tobacco takes place in, or is meant to convey around the same time period as Sherlock Holmes is. And because Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote the book so well, we now have something to compare the tobacco to. And that is the atmosphere of London in the early 1900s that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle has immortalized within Sherlock Holmes. Yeah. So, does it do it? Does this tobacco convey anything relating to Sherlock Holmes? Not even to Sherlock Holmes, because we're using that as atmospheric purposes. Does it convey London in 1812? Well, there's one aspect that not 1812, early 1900s. I don't know where I got 1812 from. There's one thing that we have not considered yet, one thing that we have not even touched upon, and that is how much a sixpence was worth. Do you know how hard it was for me to find out this information? Because I couldn't find any simple, oh yes, a sixpence in the early 1900s is about this much in modern day money. No, I couldn't find anything like that. I couldn't even find how much it would be in modern day pounds. I had to dig and dig and dig and dig, and then just extrapolate the information. And what it came to is a sixpence was worth $20 to $40 or $40 in today's money in the early 1900s. Therefore, when you read the blurb on the back, which says, you enter a dark paneled room, its walls lined with ancient books. An antique table stands beside a leather club chair. Upon it, next to a small silver coin, that'd be the sixpence, an open tobacco tin entices you in an aroma deep, rich, and authentic. You fill your bowl, strike a match. The first puff stops time as a smoky magic weaves its spell. That means that this tobacco is so special that the person that's entering into this room, or as a writer would have you believe, yourself, is so enticed by the tobacco that the sixpence, which is worth about $20, mind you, means nothing to you. This would mean, in modern day thought, it'd be as if you walked into somebody's house and there was this tin of tobacco sitting there and a $20 bill. You would actually choose this tin of tobacco. Now, because of the way it's written and the fact that the room is being described to you as you enter into the room, it tells me that this room is not your room. You're a visitor to the room. So you gravitated to this tobacco before you went to the $20. So, based off the smell of this tobacco, would you do it? Smells like a Virginia, but it is a damn good smelling Virginia. Actually, honestly, I can't not smoke this when I smell it. So yeah, it accomplishes that. Now, second question. Going back to the pipe. Does it indeed fit the atmosphere? The atmosphere in this conveys to me relatively rich, well off, actually definitely rich, an antique table, and a leather club chair. It sounds very much like the sort of place that you would read about Mycroft, who is Sherlock Holmes' brother, if you don't know, would have been staying. Somewhere with nobility, a flat for the well-to-do in England at this period of time. And this would be the tobacco that they would smoke. Is this something that I can imagine somebody such as Mycroft or any other well-to-do British person smoking in the early 1900s? Yeah. Actually, yeah. I really, really can see that. This tobacco, I'm going to do a separate review at some point, but this tobacco has grown on me so much since I started smoking it. This tobacco is brilliant. It is the first GLP's tobacco I've ever had, and it has single-handedly made me want to go out and try all of the other Old London line. But furthermore, now that we've gone through and we've established that yes, this does fit its name, yes, it is a good tobacco, and yes, the entire Old London line is just cool. There's one other thing that has to be asked since we brought up Sherlock Holmes. Countless times, again and again and again and again, I have seen tobaccos relating to Sherlock Holmes. They call themselves 221B, they call themselves Sherlock Holmes, they call themselves the Bloody Hounds of Baskerville, okay? All these different names, all these different Sherlock Holmes related tobaccos, which makes sense. Sherlock Holmes was a prolific smoker and heroin user, but you know, we're going to talk about smoking. Yeah, all of them kind of suck. Like, if you look at tobacco reviews, most of them are chemical laden, they're aromatics, they're not blended with a lot of thought. They're basically tobaccos for nerds like myself who pick up smoking for the first time and go, I want to smoke what Sherlock Holmes smoked. And they pick it up and they get a crappy tobacco, and end of story. Does this tobacco, and quite possibly the rest of the GLP's line, finally give those of us that are Sherlock Holmes fans a tobacco that we can smoke that is atmospheric while we read the books? Yes. Yes, it does. This tobacco, I can easily see myself smoking and reading Sherlock Holmes. It lends itself to that. You don't, like, you wouldn't think of it to smoke it without the name, But when you add the name, the blending, the smell, the story, all that, when you blend it together into one great big mishmash of awesome, this tobacco is great. Any book, any series, any movie that would take place in the early 1900s that involves tobacco smoking in London in any way, this tobacco will fit the bill. It is that good of a tobacco, and it does fit the atmosphere really, really well. So yes, in ending comments, Sixpence, not only does it fit its name really well, it is a story in and of itself, just to research the history of it. GLPs, my hat is off to you for coming up with probably one of the most aptly named tobaccos I've ever encountered. Truly. You guys, you'll understand a bit more when I actually do a review on the tobacco, but just know that this tobacco blend fits the bill. That's all that needs to be said. It fits the bill. It fits the sixpence, if you will. Now, without further ado, I'm going to finish my bowl and contemplate future what's in the names. I'll see you guys later.